Hi, welcome to Salute Your Shorts 2020. My name is Kylie Grundis. I was in Salute Your Shorts 2019, won runner-up best documentary, and they asked me to have the privilege and honor to interview some amazing work here, including, not limited to, this amazing work. Can you introduce your work for us?
Yes. Hi, my name is Shaofu Zhang, and I am the director and producer of Pangu. And Pangu is a short film that is based on the mythological creation myth from Chinese mythology about how the universe started. And in our version, we reimagined it as a creation myth where what if Pangu had a son? And it's a story about, it's basically a love letter actually to everyone that has ever felt like a circle living in a square world. And it's about differences and coming together, and it's about family.
I actually wrote that line down because you wrote it in your director bio. I love that line, the circle living in a square world. Because essentially, all great stories are about being an outcast, and that's kind of essentially at the heart of it, that's what you feel like an outcast in a square world as a circle. So like beautifully circled together.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So how did you come to make this film?
TAIKO Studios is a studio that I founded in 2017, and it was founded by a bunch of friends of mine at Disney. We started off with a short film called One Small Step, and that was the first thing that we did. And after that, we got contacted by Tencent, and they had this idea of doing some kind of a short film that involved Chinese culture in some way. And then we developed this idea. I always had this idea in the back of my mind of doing something with Pangu, which is not very well known in the West. And it's kind of it's a well-known myth in China, but the only thing that people really know about it is that it's basically, you know, a long time ago, the universe was nothing. There was an egg. This giant naked man, this hairy naked man, exploded out of this egg, and then he lived for a while by himself, and then eventually dying of loneliness. This is a really sad story, actually. But he was the only being in the universe. There was nothing else. And then he died of loneliness, and all the pieces of him, his hair became like the Milky Way, and his eyes became stars, and all the pieces of him became the universe. And so it was interesting to me because I really love space and sci-fi, and the story is kind of like a Big Bang Theory idea that we're all stardust, we're all of one thing, and we're all connected. And so in that way, that myth had always appealed to me, and I always thought the whole idea that it was this one being floating alone in the universe, it's a very lonely thing. And I thought, well, what if Pangu had a son? And it was something that I think I was going through at the time when I had started the studio, and my father and I were building this company together. And he had very different ideas about what he wanted to do with it and what I wanted to do with it. And we had to really come together to make all of this work and make our dreams happen. And it made me think a lot about just my journey as an artist and as a character animator at Disney for a while, and how my parents, I grew up in a very traditional kind of Asian households in America, and my parents, they did not encourage me to go beyond like the safe kind of careers. And I really loved film, I really loved animation, and I wanted to pursue that. And for a long time, my father did not approve of it until he saw how much I loved it and how it was something that could be a career path for me. Yeah, so it was like all of these ideas kind of swimming around in my head, and I think the really interesting thing about this story is that you can only really tell it through animation, because so much of the story is the design is the story, because it's about, you know, a square and a circle, and we run that motif throughout all of the art direction and even the character design. You know, Pangu is a very squared off person, and he only has straight lines that construct his design. And then his son, also Pangu, is this very rounded off, you know, kind of character. So we really wanted to make that explicit and have all of the design language around it. So when Pangu is creating his world, you know, it's all sharp angles and straights. Yeah, so I feel like it was a project that was really cool in the sense that from the inception, design was key to the storytelling.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That sounds amazing. Like, I love that so much thought came into it, and it seems like you almost needed to make it, you know? And I think those are the best, those are the best kind of films. How long did it take to make?
So let's see, we started, let's see, in the second quarter of last year, and we ended up finishing, I think, in the winter. So it was probably about 7-8 months total.
Okay.
Yeah, for the 6 minutes. And yeah, so at TAIKO Studios, we have a development studio in LA, and then we have a production studio in China. Mm-hmm. And so it was the two sides working together in tandem. Awesome. Yeah, but it was a pretty small crew, but yeah, we ended up finishing in about, I think, 7.5, 8 months.
That's pretty quick for animation, isn't it? It seems like every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once. So we did this production a bit differently, because so we had developed this kind of 2.5D style with One Small Step, our previous short, where it looks like a moving illustration, where the original intent of the visual development is basically what we intend for the final frame. Whereas a lot of times, you know, especially in like big budget animated films, it's like you have the original design, but then it has to get translated into like this photoreal 3D. And we wanted to see if we can, is there a way that we could just retain that initial inception of what the artist intended, you know, in a flatter, more illustrated way. And on Pangu, we took what we learned, and we were trying to see if we could do it with even more of the artist's intent. So almost all the backgrounds, almost all of the props and things that you see are 2D illustrations, and almost the only things that are 3D are characters and some of the effects. Yeah, so so I think in that way it did help with the process. We were able to iterate and get things done quicker than we normally have, where you would have to build out the entire set, you know, in 3D and do all this extra work on top. Yeah, so that was an interesting learning experience, I think.
Yeah. As an animator, how much work comes home with you? Like, how much of this happens at your
you know, well, these days there is no separation, because we're all working from home, and you know, everyone's remote. And I mean, I'm sitting here in a workstation, you know, right across from my kitchen. So, but on Pangu, you know, because our studio is international, I would have, you know, just a regular day during the day in LA. And then in the evenings, that's when it's 6 p.m. is 9 a.m. in China. Yeah. And so that's when they start their day. So sometimes, you know, we would have dailies that would just go, you know, all into the night. So it was, you know, full-time schedule. And then some. Especially
you go to bed, somebody else goes from where you.
Yeah. Well, the really nice thing about that is I can give a note in the evening, I go home, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and they've already addressed the note.
That's amazing.
And so that's cool.
Yeah. It's like that's the dream. It's like, people came in and just, it was done.
Yeah.
So during times like this, like quarantine and stuff, how much are you relying on your art to like keep you sane? Or is it not much different because it's kind of what you've been doing all along? Like,
yeah, well, the quarantine actually hasn't changed our process much, because even before this, we were using Zoom teleconference to run dailies with our team in China, because we have 2 different locations. And the only real difference now is, well, so in our China studio, they're not in quarantine anymore, so life is back to normal over there. But over here, it's everyone's working from home, but because of the nature of what we do here, which is more flat art, development, writing, storyboarding, all of that can be done online. And I think we're very fortunate that during this time we're still, quite busy, because I think in the industry right now, because live action cannot proceed for the most part, animation has gotten busier recently.
Yeah.
So feeling very lucky and fortunate that we're able to keep working and keep ourselves busy during this very troubling and crazy time.
No, that's very fortunate, and I feel like everybody's kind of been turning to drawing. Like even I've learned, or during this quarantine, my little hobby, because everybody's supposed to get a hobby during quarantine, has been trying to learn how to draw on my iPad. Like, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, like on like Sketchpad Pro or
and Procreate and all that.
Procreate. Yeah.
Procreate's too pixelated, but whatever. So my favorite question to ask other creative people is, especially because I have not talked to an editor before, I want to know what animation, or what an animator before, what animation made you want to be an animator? It's a really hard question.
Oh, I think it started from a young age, and this is something that I feel like so I've worked in the industry for over a decade, and worked with a lot of people that animation is their whole life, and I feel like a lot of what it is trying to reproduce or get back to this feeling that you had as a kid, where animation or movies in general just made you feel a certain way, and you want to get back to that in some way. You want to create it so that other people can feel that way, right? And for me, so I came to this country. I was born in China, Wuhan, China, and I came to this country when I was 5 years old. Grew up in North Carolina, and one of my earliest memories was my grandfather. He gave me this cassette of Bambi, and that was the first time that I think I felt something really deeply for a film, in a way that I didn't for the kind of cartoons that I saw on TV. It moved differently. It felt different. It was more elevated. It was more, and I think even as a kid, I had recognized there was something different about this that isn't like Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe, right? Even though I didn't quite understand some of the underlying themes, and the artistry that it took to create that masterpiece. And I remember it was when I was, I think, 7 or 8 years old. My dad had this old high 8 video camera, and I had figured out that if you push the record button really fast, you'll capture maybe 2 or 3 frames, and if you string them together, you can make stop motion. And I think that was the first time it clicked in my mind of, wow, okay, so you can actually do animation like this. So I mean, I grabbed like Legos and Play-Doh, you know, and I would make these little, I mean, I would spend all weekend just, you know, making like 10, 15 seconds
Yeah.
of these little short animated skits. And I think that was where it first started. And because my parents had two VCRs. One was like a really old busted VCR, but it still like was able to record.
Yeah.
I did all my editing, you know, like linear editing from one tape to the other. And that's how I learned editing for the first time. And yeah, I think it basically started from there. And then I just got more and more into film in general. Like my undergrad was actually in film production and directing. And I came to animation fairly late. I think it was, so I had worked at this studio called Screen Gem Studios right out of college. I interned there, and then I was a PA on the show One Tree Hill. And this was in Wilmington, North Carolina. The like single. Oh, you know? Okay.
I'm a big fan of the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so that was my like first foray into filmmaking as a profession, and it was around that time that Pixar started coming out with their DVDs, and they were like really full featured. And one of the big things on the DVDs that I loved was the behind the scenes. And I realized that, oh my God, there's like a whole team behind this, and there's all these different like jobs that they do, and you can actually make a living being, you know, in animation. And so I did some more research, and I always loved to draw as a kid. And then I applied to art school, did a portfolio, and then I got into the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, where I had read that they had all these, you know, great Pixar teachers and people from, you know, Disney and ILM and all these places. And that was, I think I was like 25, 26 at the time. And that was when I first took my steps into the animation industry. And yeah, so I was kind of a late.
Does your dad draw too, or is he just helping with the business side? Like you said, he was part of the.
No. My father is firmly in the finance and business side of the operation.
Well, that's so cool that you guys could work together to do that. You know?
Yeah. You know, we don't always agree on everything, but he's always had my back, and I've always had his. And I think, you know, the Pangu is a bit of an appreciation story too, you know, to the people that are really the ones that have been there for you. And I think especially as a Chinese American and immigrating into this country, and how difficult it was for my parents, like in the beginning. I think as a kid, you never really appreciate how much your parents do for you. And it's only when you're older and you realize, wow, they really sacrificed a lot, and they put a lot of time and energy and heart into raising me. And I know sometimes I wasn't the most well-behaved kid, and it must have been difficult. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to raise me, but yeah, and then looking back and you know, finding my own success in my life, the first thing I think of is, wow, I really owe a lot of this to my parents, you know, and I think Pangu is also this story because the whole story is the story of a cycle, right? Where when we first meet Pangu, he's exploding into the universe from his little vessel, right? And then at the end, we realize that he's not the first one, because he puts his son in his vessel, and then the son is going to go off and create his own universe. And I always like that idea because it's this idea that, you know, each generation passes on something to the next. And when we were making that scene, it was based off of this memory that I had when my dad was dropping me off at the airport for me to go to college, and I remember he was so emotional about it, and I was like, Dad, it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna see you. We'll be on Skype, and it's long distance, but everything's gonna be fine. And then he told me, I remember distinctly, he told me, once you go over there, I'm only gonna see you maybe once, maybe twice a year, if that. And then every year after that, and as you grow older, I'm gonna see you less and less, and that's just what happens. And I didn't believe it. I was like, no, that's not going to be true. And sure enough, that's what happened. And I think, my father, having gone through this from the other side with his father, he was feeling, all of the weight of that. And so that scene at the end is based on that memory that I had.
You could totally feel that. It totally resonates, because it's exactly. At first, I was thinking about Superman. I was like, oh, he's going to Krypton. But it so resonates. And I knew immediately when you started saying the story that it was going to be like, you were going to college. Like, exactly. That's amazing. You encapsulated it so well. And it was,
thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Well, thank you for sitting down with me. Thank you, Salute Your Shorts, for letting us meet. And thanks.
I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and from the whole TAIKO team to Salute Your Shorts for this great honor to be selected to be in the festival. And it's so awesome to be able to share to such a passionate community that loves film and loves storytelling. And thank you especially to you, Kyle-Ann, for hosting this interview. Yeah, I had a lot of fun, and thank you very much for appreciating the work that we do.
You're very welcome. Go back to work. I know I had to give you a break.